we have two from the Senate and one House Representative. Okay, all right. Well, good afternoon again. Of course, I have been introduced to you, and I'm pleased to have you all participating in this forum with us today. The Senate and the congressional race have become an important factor in the 2020 elections, and citizens are eager to hear candidates' views and plans on a wide range of subjects and issues, including police brutality, racial injustice and inequality, voter suppression, judicial appointments, reauthorization of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, criminal justice reform, affordable health care, women's rights, climate change, to mention a few. Much attention is being given to racial injustice, and race is front and center. So is the concern over the recent surge in white militia groups aimed to overthrow the local government. Citizens are fed up with the constant bickering and inability seemingly to work together for the people. It is our hope that today's citizens will leave here with a better understanding of your views on these important national matters. Of course, each of you have pulled a number in which gives you the way in which you will be questioned, and we will follow in that order. And I'm going to questions I invited each of you, both from the House and the Senate, to be on this dais with us. But I have different questions for those who are running for the Senate, as well as those who is running for the House of Representatives. Okay, the first question then I'm going to, and this will relate to both Senate and the House. The United States is in the 10th month of a pandemic with more than 8 million reported cases and more than 219,000 deaths. It is reported that President Trump's response to this deadly virus has been uneven. Question: should President Trump have been more truthful and more timely, upfront, and straightforward with the American public regarding COVID-19, especially in view of the fact that he knew about this deadly virus in January 2020? Your views. And I'll start with Mr. Windsor. Start with you, and John, you'll be next, and Mr. LaMelle, you'll be third.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Simmons. Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Thank you to NAACP and DPEC. And thank you for all the citizens out here today working hard to make an informed choice. Really grateful for your audience today. The response from President Trump has been lacking, and we've seen it in my community. The gentleman, Cornell Charles, that I coached baseball with for years, passed early on, and we can see the virus spreading through our community. And one of the problems is that this is a new virus, and we are all struggling together to make sense of the facts. We are all trying to figure out what is safe, what we can do, how we can keep our families safe. And so then you need trust, and you need leaders that you trust, and you need leaders with integrity. And I'm incredibly proud that in 12 years in the public school classrooms, that I have made integrity and honesty a key part of what we do. I mean, you talk to young people all the time, and they might say, well, it's a little white lie here, or I just looked at someone else's answers on the test, and you say, that seems small to you now. But we are now in a moment in a pandemic where we are all worried and concerned and trying to make sense of the facts and trying to keep ourselves together and safe. And so we need honesty and integrity now more than ever. That's why you practice the values that we've been taught for so long, for moments of crisis. And so as your next U.S. Senator, I will make sure I'm addressing the people with integrity, with honesty, the entire term. And I will make sure that we have a plan to defeat this virus. We are the greatest country in the world. We can do that. We must believe that, and to be great, you must fulfill the actions. I support a 17-day plan of national cooperation, testing 75 million people in contact tracers so that we can drive down cases below 7,000 nationwide, reopen schools for our children, and reopen businesses. Thank you.
You said you support contact tracing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go over the facts. Okay. You said that 8 million people in the call to question have COVID-19?
What is it?
I'm so sorry. Will you just repeat that? Go over it again?
Tested, 8 million cases in the United States.
8 million false test positives. This is a patented virus that Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci have interest in. You can look it up. You can also check out the fact that on the CDC, people that have no other comorbidity, the people that have actually died from just COVID-19 itself is about 2,100 people. So these are pumped up numbers from a media that is controlled. They are corporations that do not have our best interest in mind. And you have to understand that a scared audience is a loyal audience. And if they came on the news and said, hey, look, everything is fine, we wouldn't tune in. We'd live, about our lives. We'd go walk the dog at the park. This is to scare us. And wearing the masks and this whole fear-mongering is to dehumanize us. It's scary.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. No, that's it.
Okay.
It's just,
Mr. LaMelle?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be
Audience, please.
To be a part of this forum. Leadership is a great responsibility. And so when you have the opportunity to evaluate leaders, I'd ask that you start with thinking about accountability, then thinking about competency, and then finally transparency. And so it is up to you. You have a decision and a choice in this upcoming election. Reflect on the moment and the measure. Dr. Simmons, I support the numbers that you just cited. When you think about the gravity of COVID-19 and its impact, it's not 2 or 3 degrees of separation. Most of the time it's 1. And so as we move this country forward, as we move Louisiana forward, we have to elect leaders who are going to be responsible. I was one of those leaders through this pandemic. Through my work at Grambling State University, we successfully we navigated through this pandemic. And that included making hard decisions. The decision to have our campus operations turned around in a different way for our students, whether that's online learning or ensuring that students had access to technology in their homes. We put our people first through this pandemic, and certainly that's what I would do as a congressional leader. Put people first, focus on health and safety. Yes, wear a mask. Yes, ensure that we have the appropriate PPE. And yes, fund a stimulus package that will ultimately reopen this economy. And so think about leadership. Think about the moment, the measure, and ultimately, I think you'll find the right answer.
Thank you, Mr. LaMelle. Since we're on this subject, then I'm going to pose a question to you and we'll go down.
Okay.
To contain the coronavirus, should there be a national mandate to wear masks when in public spaces? Yes or no?
When you think about the hierarchy of how you get things done, the absence of a national strategy yielded the results that we see today. And so yes, there needs to be a national strategy to address this pandemic. State leaders have a responsibility, but it has to be in collaboration with our national leadership. The ability to scale and have the economies of scale, whether that's purchasing equipment or ensuring that you get the right type of personnel on the ground. And so a national strategy is needed. We need national leadership that's going to move us in the right direction and work with state leadership as well.
John?
yeah, your yes or no question. Yeah. So the answer is no. There should never be a nationwide mandate for face masks or anything like that.
All right.
The federal government has a responsibility to provide the testing, the tracing, the supported isolation for folks and communities to stay healthy. In the classroom, I learned from older teachers the difference between serving students and serving a community and empowering a community. And we need to make sure that we are not that the government is not doing for things people, but providing communities the resources and the trust to make decisions and draw the strength of the people. And so my answer to that question is no, because I believe that we need a solution that grounds itself not from top down, but from the bottom up. And so we need to go to faith communities, to the NAACP chapters, to school communities, and we need to build safety measures there, because right now it has turned into nasty politics, the type of politics that divides us and hurts us. Because everyone is on TV trying to get you mad to make a donation. We have politicians who have been talking. When in fact, who has been finding solutions during this pandemic? It's been small business owners, it's been nurses, it's been essential workers and teachers. So we need to empower the folks who do the work to come up with solutions to protect our communities.
Thank you. Starting with you again, Mr. Winthrop, we'll go down. What is your position on the U.S. Supreme Court overturning the Affordable Health Care Act?
That would be a grave mistake, and that would be an example of judicial activism that we cannot have. The Affordable Care Act was passed by our elected representatives, and in order to expand healthcare, and we know, everyone in this room knows how important it is to protect healthcare for our communities. I know personally because my wife has type 1 diabetes. She spends 4 hours on the phone haggling over the price of insulin with those insurance companies. And she is somebody who, if Senator Bill Cassidy had his way, might not be able to get coverage because she has a pre-existing condition. And we know that that is no way to invest in a community that is powerful and that can start businesses and raise young people and fulfill dreams. So we must fight to protect against Senator Cassidy's attacks on our healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah, I support repealing the Obamacare Act.
Any comments?
That's it. No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. COVID-19 has shown us the realities of our healthcare system. And so we need expansion of the Affordable Care Act. We need to focus both on the accessibility and affordability equation. Young students need to continue to have access to their parents' or guardians' insurance. We need to protect those with pre-existing conditions. And we need to ensure that job loss doesn't mean you lose health care. And so if you think about the realities of COVID-19, it has just shown us what is underneath the system: accessibility and affordability. So expansion of the Affordable Care Act is what I would support.
Thank you. Mr. Lamel,
Yes, sir.
have or will you today condemn white supremacy hate groups?
Absolutely. Certainly, racial unrest in this country is another pandemic. When you think about the impetus of the Black Lives Matter movement and other causes across this country, it's not performative politics, it's lives that are being lost. And so we must address that in a way that embraces diversity and inclusion. Diversity means that you are invited to the party. Inclusion means that you can dance. And so every seat where voices matter, we need people who represent diverse perspectives and diverse cultures. We have to address that, and it happens at the ground level. Yes, our leaders need to be responsible and denounce white supremacy, but we also need to ensure that the systemic problem in this country is addressed. And that means more access to jobs, more access to affordable health care for minority communities, and ultimately we have to work together on this issue in our country.
Mr.
The
John,
question is what?
will you condemn white supremacy?
I mean, of course, but white supremacy is not a problem in this country, sir. It is fluffed up by the federal, the FBI and CIA paying operatives to go out and incite fear. Just like with this whole, the governor of Michigan, Whitmer, she was found to be a dictator, a tyrant in her state, and the state Supreme Court overruled her decision, causing that state to be a lockdown. That was overturned. So immediately after that, to deflect attention from that, they had some operatives, some FBI operatives, go and stage some sort of kidnapping thing against her as some sort of pity party to deflect. I mean, it's a shame we have stuff like that happen.
Okay. Mr. Winchell.
100%.
Audience, please.
100% denounce white supremacy, and it is a problem. And I know this because I've spent a dozen years in public schools teaching young people of color. And adolescence is the time when you develop your identity, when you decide who you are, what you represent, and how society values that. And the students that I teach watch on TV or watch on their phones images of police officers with their knees on folks that look like them. And that is an unbelievable shame on our system. And it is toxic to the young people who we want to grow up to feel loved, to feel proud of who they are, to be our strength in developing small businesses and growing families and in community organizations. So it is absolutely essential that we make sure that every young person in this country sees value in themselves, sees that they are loved, and sees that they are part of making this country the greatest country in the world.
Thank you. I think we all can conclude that there are problems involving racial injustice and inequality in this nation. And my question to you, what recommendations do you have, and I'll start with you, Mr. Winthrop, is in terms of eliminating the problem of racial injustice and racial inequality? Since you'll be in the Senate or in Congress, what are some of your recommendations to deal with this problem?
Well, the first few things that we have to do, specifically, we need a $15 minimum wage to help eliminate the racial wealth gap. We need to invest in schools progressively so that schools in areas with the highest child poverty rates have the most funding and the most investment so that all children can succeed. We need pay transparency. We know that there's both gender and racial pay gaps, and we need pay transparency to empower communities, to empower individuals, to make sure that they are paid what they are worth on the job. Also, unfortunately, we have racial bias in our policing system and in our entire criminal justice system. And the folks that the community leaders that I have listened to on the issue say that the first thing we need to do is shut the front door. And we need to stop intake, especially of young black men and women, into our criminal justice system by reforming our police. And so I have a plan that would actually increase the pay of police officers in this state. It's $42,000 a year. And at the same time, hold them accountable. Make them at-will employees. If you don't do the job well, you don't get to keep the job. And that's something that people in businesses understand. If you don't do the job, you should lose it. So we need to pay public safety officers a fair wage, and we need to tell them that they're not going to treat people in the community with respect. If they are not going to be held accountable, then they must lose their job.
Yeah, so news reform that only keeps one certain narrative alive. You're only allowed to hear some sort of thing like black people being hurt. There's no, if someone that was white was shot by a black cop, that's not announced at all, News reform is the first way to start all of this, and to hold the news accountable and to have them publish every story, not things that favor their narrative,
Okay.
Thank you. Same question. A couple of key points. I certainly would, as a first act in Congress, support reauthorizing the Voters' Rights Act, ensuring that we have protections across the country. We do not have the advent of increased voter suppression. Education. I'm passionate about education, and we need to continue to invest in community and technical colleges, as well as four-year institutions, specifically minority-serving institutions, our HBCUs. So increasing funding that we saw for the CARES Act on an ongoing and annual basis to continue to provide resources and research opportunities for higher education. Public safety. I have the great benefit and fortune to lead a public safety department at a public university. We have to focus on transparency and accountability, as well as the economic engine. Retention is an issue. We need to ensure that officers who perform poorly in one area do not get a free pass to go perform poorly in another. And so we have to work on that in a very real and sustainable way. And then finally, on the wealth gap side, women in this country are paid 68 cents to a man's dollar. And so as we think about generational wealth, we have to focus on women and minority communities so that we do have an expanded livable wage and economic opportunities, including support for small businesses right here in Jackson Parish. And ultimately, the combination of education, a focus on good legislation, and economic development will yield results.
Good. This question goes primarily to Mr. Johns and to Winster. This one deals with the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court and the rush by Republicans to quickly confirm her nomination that sparked and launched a high-pitched battle among groups. Do you support the nomination? If yes, why?
Starts with you right after the order.
You go.
Yeah.
Sure. I do not, is the question a procedural question? Do I support her on the court, or is it, do I support their ability to put on?
Her nomination, right, to the court.
Unfortunately, I believe that they are within their rights to do that. And I think that needs to inform how the next Congress writes legislation and moves in order to do everything within our power to make sure that our government works for the people of Louisiana and not Wall Street and Washington and not special interests. And so I see that as a challenge to make progressive legislation that supports our communities, that follows the rules. And right now I'm incredibly disappointed. And the one question I would have, two questions I would have for Ms. Barrett are, one, do you support Citizens United? Do you think corporations should be able to have an outsized influence in our election? Or do you think folks like the people here today should decide their leaders? Do you support Janice? Do you believe that workers should be able to organize and advocate and have a say in how business and how the economy works in this country? And those are two things we need urgent change on right now so that we empower the people of Jackson Parish and all of Louisiana to have a say in their government and make sure the government serves our communities.
Okay. No, I do not support her nomination. I do want to say one thing before I continue. They tried to hold on to Ruth Bader Ginsburg as long as they could. That way the Republicans wouldn't be able to have ample time to put someone in that they prefer. But I do think that the Republicans are bamboozled by her, and I will say several things about that. One, the Koch brothers, one of the biggest industries we have, they do not support Donald Trump. However, they do fund Amy Coney Barrett. So I think that's they need to look into that. That's a conflict of interest. Also, I support, and they should have supported, as in they as the Republican Party, Judge Barbara Lagoa out of Florida. She knows the hardships of actually escaping communism, and she escaped a communist country and came over here. She is in touch. Everyone should look into Barbara Lagoa. She should definitely be the nominee. And I will conclude with the fact that Judge Amy Coney Barrett is a lockdown judge. She has cited Jacobson. Look into that. That's a horrible a horrible decision to cite. And she has a track record of supporting lockdowns. Barbara Lagoa does not, and she is a constitutionalist and wants to keep this country open and free. Thank you.
You'd like to respond?
Given that, in the U.S. House, we would not have a vote on that nomination, certainly I think it's a critical time in our country. My opinion will rest on the process of the election. We certainly should have the election to elect the president, and then ultimately let the president make a nomination.
Okay. Back to the Senate candidates again. It's factual that President Trump has appointed more federal judges than any other president than President Jimmy Carter in the 4 years that he's been in office. Of that number, I think a total of 198 federal judges, young, aggressive, conservative judges, not one was an African American. What are your views? How do you think the federal court, your views about the federal court, since these judges are appointed for life? The only way they can be removed from office is either through death, through resigning, or through impeachment. But how do you see the court, the structure of the court? Should the court be all appointees should be other race other than African Americans? I'll start with you.
Oh, you start with, oh, okay, I didn't know, okay, so we're gonna go back and forth. I need to know, where you're getting that, information from. I need to look into that, so my comment, and my question as of now is no comment. I need to, look further into that, sir.
No comments in
No
regard
comment,
to
yes,
whether or
sir.
not African Americans should be appointed to the
I
federal bench?
wanna look into, if it's actually factual from where I get my news, where, Donald Trump always nominated, because for him to only wanna nominate, Caucasian people, I think is, that's hard for me to believe. So at the root of your question, I wanna dive into that, so I will answer that at a later time.
Okay, I think that's something, that's fair.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Dr. Simmons, I have incredible respect for your career and your education, and I appreciate you bringing that point to mind. One of the judges earlier said that justice is blind. If you were blind and you randomly picked 50 people in this country, and it would be almost theoretically impossible for them to be all white. That is evidence. I'm a math teacher, I teach algebra 2. That is clear evidence of racial discrimination, because those numbers could not happen any other way other than specifically picking a different, one type of person. We need to look at the way we confirm judges to make sure that we cannot have obstructionists who are preventing one party or another from supporting judges, and we need to make sure, we need to look at the federal backlog, and we need to decide if we need more federal judges to make sure that we can handle all the cases, and to make sure that they represent our communities.
Thank you. Mr. LaMelle, I know that's will not be, but would you like to weigh in?
I'll just offer some similar comments as Mrs. Washington spoke about earlier, about our leadership ranks reflecting the diversity of the world that we live in. So whether it's the President of the United States or the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, who said that he couldn't find African American talent, I can tell you where you can find them, right? It's at 403 Main Street at Grambling State University. And so when you think about power and systems of influences, we need to have leaders who understand that diversity adds value to an organization, whether it's a federal appointment or if it's an entry-level job in corporate America. So everywhere decisions are being made, women need to be there, minorities need to be there. We need to have influence and a voice in those conversations.
Okay. My last question goes to those who are running for the Senate as well. And if you care to weigh in on this one. In fact, I have two questions. The first one is, are you supportive of the president's claim that there will be widespread voter fraud in the upcoming election? That's a claim that's being made, that there will be widespread, and that we may not know the outcome of the election until days or weeks or months. What are your views?
My view is that the strength of this country lies in our people, and we must do everything we can to trust our people, trust the decisions we make, and there is currently almost no evidence of voter fraud. In fact, Mr. Trump's commission attempted to find as hard as they could voter fraud in 2016, and even they could not find any. we need to honor the ballots that are being served, and we need to make sure we're investing in the post office so that everyone's vote is counted and voted on time. And I would also like to second that when that in January, when the new Congress takes place, we do need to pass the John Lewis Memorial Civil Rights Act,
1965.
Voting Act, to make sure that we expand voting, because right now the people in power are afraid of the will of the people, and that is the exact opposite. We need people in power who want the input of the community, who want to do as the community has decided. That is what a democracy means.
Yes, I completely support that claim, and also the reason why he says this is because big tech is so involved. Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, and also the founders of Google, Sergey Brin and Lori Page, were less than enthused about Donald Trump becoming president, and have taken many steps to suppress and to shadow ban many conservative and Republican or any account that doesn't go with this mainstream narrative that they support. So I can guarantee you this, so we'll go on a limb and say we will not have a clear understanding of who is president on November 3rd or for quite some time by design. Now, I will also point to the fact that Nancy Pelosi has alluded to the fact that she will take the reins, if you will. I am putting words in her mouth, but in so many words, she said that she will try. What's going on is, let me back up, is the Democratic Party is trying to push us into 20th and 25th Amendment territory. So it's so convoluted that we don't have any sort of clear winner. That the House of Representatives can then vote on who's president. So it's very worrisome. There are tons of reports of mail-in ballots that have been thrown in ditches and not held accountable. There have been recent documentaries about Ilhan Omar threatening people to vote for her and having some of her, I would say, I'll venture to say, minions or people that are part of this collusion, if you will, to harvest ballots from people that get them in the mail and then are filled out themselves by the people with Ilhan Omar's interest. So yes, voter fraud is very scary, and I'm very worried to see an actual authentic outcome on the 3rd of November.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lamel, did you have any comments before?
I would just offer this adage, as the hymn said, it's getting late in the evening, the sun is going down. So it is time to vote. Vote now as your life depends on it, because it does. So phone a friend, call your cousin, call your mama. Early voting started yesterday. Election day is November 3rd. Use your voice, use your vote.
Okay. One final question, and I'm going to direct this to you, Mr. Lamel, and of course, you all can weigh in on it as well. The stimulus package. I think it's before the House right now at about, 1.6 trillion, and it seems to be there's a holdout by the House in terms of sending that bill forth. What's your views on that?
So we need something beyond stimulus. We need a sustainability package for this country. And so as your congressman for the 5th Congressional District, one of my first priorities will be to focus on legislation that delivers right here in the 5th Congressional District. Speaking about rural broadband and the advancement of our students here in the state, small businesses who were left out of the first stimulus package, investment right here in Louisiana in a way that is going to sustain our economy. Not just short-term cash infusion, but long-term economic development and growth. And so that's my commitment, to focus on a sustainability package for America, and one that delivers right here in the 5th Congressional District.
Thank you.
No,
Mr. John?
I'm not for any sort of bailouts. We cannot be a nation that lives bailout to bailout. That causes hyperinflation. And also too, we need to, on the same token, we need to take back the Federal Reserve, which is not federal at all and privately owned, and lends money to this country at interest each year. And another reason, I'll conclude with this, one of the reasons JFK was assassinated, who I love to death, was because he was going to enact Executive Order 11110, which would take back the Federal Reserve and make the dollar silver backed. Please look into that act, executive order. There's 4 1s and then a 0, 11110. Thank you.
We all know folks who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own during this pandemic. For me, hundreds of students that I've seen, that I've invested in, that are now out in the job force and looking for a job, or maybe they started a business in February and they've lost it, or they're at risk of losing it. And so many people in our community are in a tough spot through no fault of their own. So my proposal is instead, in 2010, 2009, we were there, we saw them bail out Wall Street, bail out large corporations, and we had millions and millions of people out of work for half a decade. The recovery for the people took too long. The recovery for Wall Street and Washington was immediate. And we need to switch that. This time around, I support stimulus for the people. We need 3 months of stimulus payments for the people. So if you're a nurse who's been going to work this entire pandemic, you deserve stimulus as well. If you are out of work, you get stimulus. If you are a small business, instead of all these things that have favored certain communities in small business bailouts, we need to provide it to everyone. And then 3 months, we need to start a jobs program to get people back to work building infrastructure. As Mr. Lamel said, we need to build rural broadband across the state. Lafayette has some of the best internet in the country. We need that in every parish so that folks, when they're going back to work, can get a job anywhere in the country and work from home. We need to invest in our roads, in our ports, in our bridges. We need to put people back to work right away, because we know that there are investments that must be made in our community so that our children have a stronger foundation to build their dreams.
Thank you, thank you. Closing remarks, starting Mr. Lamel and Mr. John and Winter, in that order.
Well, thank you very much. It's certainly a pleasure to be back in Jackson Parish for the second time in the last 2 weeks, where I've been the only candidate here for the 5th Congressional District race. And so that says to you that I am committed. You will see me at any time you offer me the opportunity. I truly believe where 2 or 3 are gathered, there the Lord is also. And so as a man of faith, as a resident and native son of this community, I am excited to be the Democratic endorsed candidate here in the 5th Congressional District. I am focused on rural broadband development. I'm focused on ensuring that we have a sustainable future with great jobs right here in the 5th Congressional District. And yes, I'm focused on the power and the transformation of education. If we think about empowering a student in pre-K, the lifelong economic opportunity that student has to go to college, to live the American dream, own a home, start a small business, and change lives. That's why we're running. This election for me has never been about Democrat or Republican. It is about putting our country over politics. I'm Martin Lamel. I'm number 38 on the ballot. You can find me online at martinlamel.com, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, at Martin Lamel. I'd love to be your congressman. So glad to see you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Closing remarks would be Man Zan John, number 6 on the ballot. I am the antidote. Thank you.
I'm incredibly proud of my career in the classroom. Like so many other educators, afternoons and evenings spent tutoring, evenings spent at the games or prepping for the next day. Weekends, I remember taking my daughter Hope to the school for Saturday tutoring when she was 2 months old, so she could get babysat by one student while I led the rest of the class in review for the test. I'm incredibly proud, and education is, as Mr. Lamel said, it's at the heart of every issue that we face as a community and as a state. And we want those opportunities for our young people, and we want to make sure that we are designing programs so that every young person in this state can pursue their dream. But again, this campaign is about more than education. It's about the difference between serving a community and empowering a community. And we see on TV, and it is disheartening to see the division and the yelling and the lack of solutions. And the antidote to that is the people, is the communities, is the NAACP organization, is the church organization, are the local elected leaders. And we need to find a way to make sure that we are investing resources in our future through our people, through our communities. So as your next U.S. Senator, I promise to trust communities and parishes with decisions and to make sure we have the resources to build a better future. I'm humbly asking today for your prayers, for your support, for your vote for the United States Senate on number 15 on the ballot, Peter Wenstrup. It's been an honor to speak with you today.
Thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank you all for coming today, sharing with us. Certainly, I believe that your output here today has been helpful to us, and that will help us to make a very important decision. God bless you all. And I want to thank all of those candidates who have been. Let's give all of the candidates who were here